You're live.
Thank you very much. Just give it a couple of more seconds. Okay, a standing committee. It is 5 o'clock and time to get to work. So I will call this meeting to order. I'll read out the land acknowledgement. Today we acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. And for the adoption of the agenda, I have it moved by Councillor Hamlin and seconded by Mayor Saunderson that the content of the Development and Operation Services Standing Committee agenda for December 7th be adopted as presented. And are there any errors or omissions? All right, I'll call the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Are there declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Jeffrey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why am I getting feedback? Anyway, so I have a conflict to declare with respect to staff report P 2020-26 regarding Home Horizon 53 Campbell Street, as I am a board member of that organization and a contracted bookkeeper.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Okay, then moving on, is there business arising from the previous meeting? Seeing none, I will move on then to item 5, staff reports. And the first item on the agenda is P 2020-26, 53 Campbell Street, Home Horizons Barbara Weider House site plan approval. And Councillor Jeffrey, are you gonna?
I'm assuming staff are going to move me out, or do I just shut everything off here?
I've been myself just shutting myself off, but Stephanie, there we go. Okay, Director Farr, is this for you? Oh, Deputy Mayor Hull.
Sorry to bother. Through you, Madam Chair, could we have the other staff members who are participating identify themselves? There are several who are on the call, but they're just simply identified as Town of Collingwood.
Okay, Stephanie, is that something you can control?
Sorry, if I can speak, Chair.
Certainly.
The staff members that are on the call, they need to rename themselves. I don't believe that we can't see who they are unless they have their video on. So if they can just go in and right click on more and rename themselves.
Okay, I'll just give everybody a minute to do that. Okay, and I think we have everybody now. Great. Okay, so Director Farr, will you be taking this staff report? You're muted.
Yes, I will. I'll be presenting this item for committee this evening. I'm just waiting for the PowerPoint to come out. Okay, thank you very much. I'm presenting a site plan recommendation for approval for 53 Campbell Street. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a property located on the north side of Campbell Street, west of Maple. It's the site of the Barbara Weider House. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing a an addition, a modest addition to the rear of the existing building. You can see it at the right of the shadowed in footprint of the existing structure. It's approximately 7.5 meters by, I think it looks like about 14 meters wide. Next slide, please. It's intended to accommodate an additional 3 bedrooms and some facility space as part of this overall development. It doesn't include the addition of any new dwelling units. This building structure, it falls into a building form known as boarding house, which is considered to be up to 10 bedrooms that are sharing one dwelling unit, so having common facilities. Next slide, please. The proposed expansion is shown here in elevations. The top image is the rear elevation. This is what you'd see standing from the back of the property. And the bottom image is of the building being viewed from the west. Currently, the existing structure stops somewhere around to the left of the second window from the end. And so they're expanding this out. They're maintaining notably the existing roof height. So this is a large rectangular bungalow structure. Next slide, please. So when you consider the extent of the expansion, it's worthwhile noting the permissions that are set out in the zoning bylaw and how this expansion addresses those of related variables. So on this site, which is zoned R2, the coverage is permitted to be 45%, and with the expansion, the building would cover 24% of the property. The side yards, as you'll note, they're permitted to be 1.2 meters, whereas here they're proposed to be roughly 6 meters on the west side, 8 meters on the east side. The rear yards permitted to be 7.5 meters, and it's actually proposed to be 8.2 roughly. 1 parking space is required. Here there are about 4 parking spaces. There's no change. What you have is a larger than usual property size surrounded by existing residential development. Next slide, please. When this property first came forward, was built, there were some concerns about drainage onto adjacent properties. So a catch basin was installed in the rear yard. Engineering went out to the site to take a look at this as part of our site plan review. And they noted that the catch basin should be lowered to ensure adequate performance. This requirement's captured on the site plan drawing that's proposed for approval. There's also a drainage swale that runs around the perimeter of the property, ensuring that any surface drainage on this property is contained within the property and directed to the catch basin. So the site plan also ensures that those existing drainage solutions are maintained in good working order without obstruction. All of this to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Engineering. Because this addition is more than 400 square feet, a grading plan is required at the building permit stage. So the proposed site plan drawing has all these notations that are referenced, and as you see above, that will mean that the building permit will have to ensure that those measures are in place and are addressed through the grading plan. The applicants are aware of these provisions and are agreeable to them. I should note that on this file as well that the applicant has requested a waiver of site plan application fees. Normally, it's the town's practice to collect fees before we initiate a site plan review. And in this case, we agreed to process the site plan without the fees. Ultimately, here it's a formality for you to waive those. You could still require those as a precondition to allowing or making a recommendation, whatever it might be to council. In this case, we elected to waive those fees because this project was originally exempt from site plan approval. As you'll note in the report, we reviewed our existing planning framework to confirm whether or not we could allow that waiver of site plan process altogether. And as it happens, boarding houses are not exempt from site plan control. And in my view, rightly so, because depending on the type of boarding house that's proposed, as you saw earlier, the zoning provisions for side yards and height are quite generous, and you could potentially see a much larger boarding house structure in a neighborhood, and you would absolutely want to subject that development to a site plan. So that's why we applied it to this property. We also considered the notion of exempting the proposal through the provisions in the Planning Act, which allow you to consider whether or not an expansion substantially increases the size or usability of a structure. It was difficult to overlook the fact that 3 bedrooms, in fact, are being added to this building. Although there are no additional staff that are required to manage those additional units, I couldn't arrive at the conclusion that there wasn't some sort of change in the usability as a result of the expansion. So for those reasons, we applied site plan, but because of the general simplicity of the application, it did not require significant expenditure of resources, and as a result, we recommended that the fees be waived. And that concludes my presentation. I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Farr. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public?
Through the chair to the committee, we do have Matthew Pretty on the line that's asking to speak.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Matthew.
It looks like.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm just wondering, who is the applicant of this boarding house? It's a great opportunity for the town, especially with the new program funded by the town that's working very well, referring people to housing in the community, people at, for example, the emergency shelter. That program is working so well, referring people to available housing and referring people to greater opportunities that they wouldn't be able to possibly do by themselves. This Campbell location, could I just ask, is this part of the new emergency shelter program and the referral for attainable housing? Is this one of the solutions the town has been working on and maintaining for attainable housing programming, and what's the point of all of this? Thank you.
Director Farr, would you care to answer that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. This is the Home Horizons Barbara Weider house, which provides supportive residence for youth at risk, and it's you may hear from it later. This is an established operation. It's just been in place for a number of years now, and it's generally viewed as delivering many of the benefits that that the member of the public just raised.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Matthew?
He seems to have dropped off the call here, so I'll keep my eye out for him.
Okay, thank you. Then I will move on for now then, and I will read out the motion. Moved by Mayor Saunderson and seconded by Deputy Mayor Hull, that staff report P 2020-26, 53 Campbell Street, Home Horizon, Barbara Weider House site plan approval be received, and that council approve the processing of this application as a minor adjustment to an existing site plan control agreement and waive the related fees for review of the proposed expansion to the Home Horizon Barbara Weider House for the specific combination of reasons set out within this report. Okay, and questions or comments from members of the committee? Vice Chair Hamlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Director Farr. This new site plan agreement for this project, will it pick up the existing features on the ground already that might have been picked up if there had been a site plan originally? Things like walkways and where the lighting is and so on, just to sort of solidify the existing project, which works very well from my observations.
Director Farr.
Through you, Madam Chair, no site plan agreement is proposed for this application. Those provisions I mentioned about drainage are tagged onto the site plan, which is an option for making clear what the obligations might be that the owner has. There is a solid and substantial board-on-board fence that's constructed around the property that is definitely helpful in mitigating any kind of size or impact related issues, which are generally small or minimal because of the height, the restricted height of the building and the generous setbacks. So we have only at this point captured the drainage, but haven't referenced the fencing.
Okay, thank you. Collingwood is so fortunate to have this facility in our community, and it has been so successful in doing what it does, being transitional housing for young adults. And I couldn't think of a better project to waive fees for. So fully in support of that, and thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Deputy Mayor Hall.
Thank you. Very briefly, I just wanted to comment, and it was made mention at a meeting or maybe once, twice removed, that monies were made available as a flow through from the county and are being applied to this particular opportunity, which is good to see the reinvestment back in Collingwood. And secondly, a thank you to our staff for the waiving of the fees. This is quite appropriate. Thank you.
Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm certainly in favor of this, and this has been a huge success story for our community. And at the beginning of the last council, we noticed through the library the number of youth that were reliant on services at the library, including food, and did not have a place to go when the library closed. So then Councillor Ecclestone began to pound the pavement and work with the county, and ultimately it turned into this, the Barbara Weider House, which is an incredible addition to our community, and in fact has reshaped some of the social services sector. So Home Horizons has pivoted to lead this transitional housing for youth. They've changed their mandate and their funding model a bit as a result of that. I think in concert with other social service providers in the community. And so to see this expansion of 3 beds, which is almost a 50% expansion, shows the need, but also the success of the Home Horizons project. And the number of the residents have gone on and actually worked for Home Horizons there in transition and found permanent housing and employment. So it really is a testament to how effective this is. So absolutely, I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Deputy Clerk Dahl.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't think the third clause was read out when the motion was put on the floor. So I'm just wondering if you could just reread it before it's voted on.
Oh, my apologies. Okay. What I'll read that. I'll make a comment myself and then I'll reread the whole motion and then I'll call the vote on it. I also am very much in favor of this recommendation. I agree with Vice Chair Hamlin for sure that we're very lucky to have a facility like this in our community. But just following up on a question that Mr. Preddy posed as to whether this is along the same line of services provided by the Out of the Cold. My understanding is that this is different than Out of the Cold. This is not emergency housing. This is, I think as the mayor correctly stated, is transitional housing, tends to be a little bit longer term, and eventually with a view to these young people finding a place of their own or being reconciled with their families. So let me reread then the motion, my apologies, and I'll call the vote. So it's moved by Mayor Saunderson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hull, that staff report P2020-26, 53 Campbell Street, Home Horizon, Barbara Weider House site plan approval be received, and that council approve the processing of this application as a minor adjustment to an existing site plan control agreement and waive the related fees for review of the proposed expansion to the Home Horizon Barbara Weider House for the specific combination of reasons set out within this report 2020-26. And further, that based on the attached plans, appendices B and C, and the analysis contained within this report, P2020-26, council grant site plan approval of the expansion of the structure at 53 Campbell Street. So if there's no further questions or comments, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And Councillor Jeffrey can rejoin us.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5.2 then. PW 2020-22 Advanced Timing Termination Agreement for the Stewart Road Reservoir. And Director Slama, I'm going to guess that you will be taking this.
Yes, thank you, Chair Doherty. I'll speak to the staff report this evening. So for the lands on the west side of Collingwood, in order for them to be developed, we need some infrastructure that will support water servicing. So this is in our pressure zone 2, which is a higher pressure zone. And a reservoir is required to provide the peak flow demands as well as the emergency and fire flows. And then the booster station is required to increase the pressure to service that area. So currently in town, the only water infrastructure that we have that services pressure zone 2 is in our south end, which is the Poplar Side Road. So the intention has always been to build some new water infrastructure to service the west side of Collingwood. In 2016, some developers who owned land in this western area came to the town and asked when the town was planning to build this infrastructure, which would support them moving forward with some development. At the time, this infrastructure is funded by DCs. It's a DC funded project. And at the time, there was insufficient money in the water DC reserves to move ahead with the project. So in 2018, the town entered into what was termed a front-ending agreement with 2 interested developers. And at the time, that was Mare Mills Village and Consar Red Maple. So those 2 developers were party to an agreement with the town, which would see them providing some securities, which would be used to help fund construction of the works. And the agreement laid out how they would be paid back for this money that they were advancing to the town. After signing of that agreement, only Mayor Mills Village provided the securities, and we never did receive anything from Consar Red Maple. So at the beginning of 2020, the owners of the Mayor Mills Village development came back to us and inquired whether there was any opportunity to reconsider the funding arrangements for this infrastructure. And of course, by this time, 2 years later, we have a little bit more money in our water DC reserves. And we are now in a position to provide more of the funding for this infrastructure, but we do still require some support, some advanced support from developers. So in short, the town is open into considering a new agreement. But so this staff report here today is basically an administrative exercise. So for the town to be able to consider any new agreements regarding this infrastructure, we need to terminate the old agreement. So the draft termination agreement that is attached to the staff report was drafted by our legal counsel, and it has been reviewed by the two developers that are party to the agreement, and they agree in principle to sign this termination agreement. So what we're seeking today is committee and then council's approval for the mayor and clerk to execute the termination agreement and authorize the release of the securities back to Mayor Mills Village. And I just wanted to note that if we decide, if the town decides to go ahead with a different advanced timing agreement, then I would just want to assure committee and council that we would bring this forward in a different staff report for committee and council's consideration in the future.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the public?
I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak, if you could please raise your hand. And it doesn't look like our participants wanting to speak at this time.
Okay, terrific. All right, then I will read out the entire motion and turn it over to committee for discussion. So moved by Deputy Mayor Hull and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey, that staff report PW 2020-22, advanced timing termination agreement for Stewart Road Reservoir be received, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the termination agreement for the advanced timing agreement, Stewart Road Reservoir, by passing the attached authorizing bylaw, and that council authorize the treasurer to close out the advanced timing agreement with Mayor Mills Village Inc. and Consar Red Maples Investment Inc. by releasing any secured money provided through the agreement. Standing committee, questions or comments? Vice Chair Hamlin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Director Slama. Of course, I'm in favor of this. If we're going to have a new funding arrangement, we have to get rid of the old one. So, but my question is for the new agreement, will it be a front-ending agreement under the provisions of the Development Charges Act?
Director Slama?
Through the chair to Councillor Hamlin, at this time, we are considering another advanced timing agreement as opposed to a front-ending agreement as defined by the DC Act.
So when this comes forward, I would like the staff report to explain why we wouldn't be taking advantage of the provisions of the Development Charges Act. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the director, I just have a couple of questions. And I too am in support of the staff report that's come before us tonight. But I just wanted to clarify, number one was that I thought that past agreements was a tripartite or even a four-part agreement between the two developers, ourselves, and Linksview on the west side. So I guess number one, is that not the case? And then the second part is that we, at some point this term, agreed to, I believe, an extension of 1 year for Red Maple. And part of the reasoning for the extension was that it would keep this current agreement in place. So one could speculate that if this agreement is no longer in place, that when they come up for draft approval again, we may be having a different conversation. Perhaps you can't answer that second one because it's pure speculation on my part, but it's perhaps good speculation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Director Slama?
Thank you. Through the chair to Deputy Mayor Hull. So originally, yes, when we began discussions with some interested developers in 2016, it did include three, and that was Mayor Mills Village, Consar, Red Maple, and Linksview. But by the time we finished our discussions and actually went through with drafting the agreement, Linksview wasn't interested in participating at the time.
Okay.
All of those developments and other developments in the area, we do have a clause in any subdivision agreement that any benefiting development would need to enter into an agreement of sorts to help fund this infrastructure. And so we still have that clause in place because we are considering these types of agreements until the day comes that unless we have enough money in our reserves to fund it fully ourselves. And regarding your second question, yes, Director Farr might be able to, if he remembers, when Red Maple, when the draft plan comes up. But I think you're correct. It was extended for a year. And yes, we're anticipating that any future agreements would look different and probably not include that party, but it's hard to say, right? Because the land may change hands, and if somebody else is interested, they in developing it and moving forward with the development, they may be willing to enter into the agreement.
For what it's worth, if I can jump in.
Yes.
2022 is when that expires. And from a planning standpoint, based on previous discussion at this committee and at council, we're evaluating every extension in more detail in terms of its merits in order to provide council with the best advice relative to whether or not to extend or alter conditions. And these types of arrangements, updates to the arrangements would certainly be factors that we would be looking at and considering extension recommendations.
Thank you, Director Farr. Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And through you to, I guess, Director Slama. My recollection when we passed this advanced or agreed to this advanced timing agreement during last council, part of the rationale was that this spreads the risk. In other words, the developers are front-end loading the money and then they get credit for it on the DC charges as they go forward with the development. And I guess my concern is if we're looking now at changing the nature of that agreement, are we going to make sure that we're to the extent that there is no risk? I mean, if we're investing money in this infrastructure, that it's going to be acted on and it's not going to sit idle.
Mm-hmm. Director Slama.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mayor Saunderson. So if I understand your question and comment correctly, at the time, yes, entering into this agreement was a sharing of the risk, but really this is this is a project that the town would normally move ahead with as we see that development, that area was needed for development to continue. So it was just at the time some of these developers were more anxious, and we didn't have the funds in our reserve to move ahead with the project. So I think, you know, I think the agreement that we had was a good agreement in that it did limit our risk, and any future agreements we would be taking the same consideration. And you are correct. I will just add one more comment. Mayor Saunderson is correct that the existing agreement would have the developers being their money being returned through DC credits as they develop. But there was also a provision because for some of those, they were paying more than their development, their DC credits would give them in return. So there was also a provision to make sure that we were giving them some of that money back each year if that was favorable for the town.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Director Slam, and we'll certainly we want to stimulate the growth out there. At the same time, we want to make sure that that the infrastructure is going to be used in the short term, so it's not being installed and left to sit. I think is the concern, given some of the history of the development proposals out there.
Right.
So thank you,
Dr. Slama.
Thank you, Chair. One additional comment I will make. There is one development currently in place, and that's Georgian Meadows. And Georgian Meadows proceeded, you know, almost 20 years ago by connecting along 6th Street and building their own little booster station. So that is one existing development that would then be connected to this facility, and the smaller booster station that we operate and maintain for that development only would be decommissioned. So we know that we would see, we would have that connected to the infrastructure right away, you know, which has some use on it, but there is a lot of interest along the 10th line. So it is our hope that if we build it, they will come.
Thank you. Mayor Saunderson, thank you for asking that question about risk and timing, because I was going to ask the same question. And I was also going to ask why at the time that Georgian Meadows went ahead that this project wasn't in place, but you've already explained that as well. So if there are no further questions or comments, then I will, sorry, did I read it? Yes, I did. I'll call the vote. Oh, Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry for the lateness of this question, but I guess the issue of the timing, I'm wondering if this might impact the Fisher Field House, because they're going to be on a septic system and well, so if the services are going out there, perhaps there's a way to marry those two to prevent or to be more efficient, I would think, in the long term, to have them hooked up to municipal services. I just put that out there as a thought because I think Director Culver did reference that in the comments about Fisher Field House.
Yes. Okay, if there's no further discussion, then I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next item is the reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And I have the Collingwood Heritage Committee minutes. Are there any questions or comments in regard to those minutes? Sorry, did I see a, oh, yes, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just through you to Adam, he did circulate tape of the presentation or of the meeting and the deputation from Michael McClelland with respect to heritage issues. And I did watch that, and it was very informative and dealt with issues about materials and windows and compatible or sympathetic materials in the new versus old discussion. And it was extremely helpful. So thank you to Director Farr for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Any other comments? Okay, I'll read the motion then. Moved by Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Hamlin, that the minutes of the Collingwood Heritage Committee meeting held November 23rd be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 7, departmental updates and discussion. Director Salama, you have booked an update on plastics and microplastics reduction project, but I understand that you'll be adding traffic calming to your comments. So I will let you take the floor.
Thank you, Chair Doherty. Yes, 2 separate updates, and I'll start with just some comments with respect to Council received a letter from Georgian Bay Forever, and that was part of the consent agenda of a recent council meeting. So I just thought it might be worthwhile for me to provide an update to committee and the public on Collingwood's participation with Georgian Bay Forever and the identification and reduction of plastics in our community. So the letter indicated that Georgian Bay Forever was successful in securing 2 federal grants from Environment and Climate Change Canada, and they'll be moving forward with some projects in our community with that grant funding. So the first is the Divert and Capture program, and this program has started, and this is where Georgian Bay Forever is looking for 300 participant households to install a microplastics filter on the discharge of their washing machine. So at the time of the letter, they'd indicated they've had just over 100 residents sign up to participate in this program. So if there are any other residents who would be interested, there is some space that we know of for some additional participants. And we would like to see 300 if we could. Georgian Bay Forever is working with NBCA on delivering some outdoor school-based curriculum for the grades 6 through 8. And Georgian Bay Forever is also connecting with interested community groups to deliver some workshops and provide some information on plastic reductions and the opportunities there. Some other projects with the town directly, the letter speaks to these gutter bins, and the town working with Public Works, or Public Works working with Georgian Bay Forever, we're going to install 4 gutter bins, and these are devices that are installed in the catch basins. We're going to install them on 4 catch basins along here Ontario Street in the spring. Mm-hmm. And these devices will capture any of the debris, the street debris that runs into the catch basins. And we're going to work together with Public Works collecting this debris and clearing the screens, these gutter bins. And then Georgian Bay Forever will sort through that and provide some information to the town on like what they're seeing as debris that is washing down the street. And Public Works is also discussing the installation of trash traps with Georgian Bay Forever. So they were asking if we have any locations where they could install these, again, they're kind of like nets that would be connected either onto our stormwater culverts or just downstream, and would then collect any debris that is in the stormwater outlet. So we're looking to see if we have any suitable locations for those 2 trash traps. And the letter also indicates that Georgian Bay Forever will be looking at implementing the Yellowfish Road program in our community. So our community is familiar with this program because we do have some yellowfish on our streets identifying our stormwater catch basins. And so this yellowfish program is educational program where a yellowfish is painted by the catch basin. Is just identifying to members of the public and people walking on the street, reminding them that anything that goes down that catch basin eventually goes straight to our Georgian Bay or to our rivers. So they'll be probably working with the schools on that program. Also, Georgian Bay Forever is looking to initiate the Georgian Bay Plastic Free. And this is a program where they would engage businesses and employers, the municipality and the schools, and looking at encouraging all of us to reduce our plastic and helping identify ways that we can do that, and looking for some commitments to keep with that reduction in the things that we do and use every day. So yeah, that's just a summary of the letter, but I wanted to just provide committee how we're supporting some of those initiatives in our community.
Thank you very much. That is certainly consistent with some of the direction that we have been taking as municipalities. So very good to hear that these projects are moving forward.
Mhm.
Any comments or questions? Chair Hamlin, Vice Chair Hamlin, and then Deputy Mayor Hull.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that Georgian Bay Forever is looking for 200 more volunteers to participate in the project, I guess, to collect plastics from washing machines. Is that the project? So I'm just wondering if people are interested in that, how would they sign up?
Thank you. Yes, good question. So I thought it was on our website, but I was looking beforehand and I didn't see a link on our website. So I'm not sure if CAO Skinner, if you remember how people can sign up for this initiative.
CAO Skinner?
Unfortunately, I don't have that at top of mind either, but I think that we could probably find that prior to the end of the meeting if that's appropriate.
That would be terrific.
Great.
Thank you. I have Deputy Mayor Hull and then Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm thinking that Councillor Jeffrey maybe has the address, and is that why the card went up or no?
Yeah, it did.
Right.
Okay, go ahead then.
Yep, it's just at the georgianbayforever.org website. It's so easy. It's just under one of the register for your free washing machine filter, and you clicked it. I entered my first and last name and my email address and signed up. I just finished it right now. So
Great.
Thank you.
CAO Skinner, perhaps we could have a link installed on our website to assist with the sign up.
Thank you, Chair Doherty. We will make sure that that is up tomorrow.
Terrific. And Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So you're quite right, Councillor Jeffrey. It is just that easy. So anyway, I just a quick question or comment. And again, there's going to be 4 catchment areas that are along here Ontario Street. So these will be sort of filters on top of the actual drains going into the system. Okay.
Yeah, they'll sit under the grate. They sit under the grate, but they are going to catch anything that runs through the grate before it goes into the pipe below. Okay.
So does that mean then that's good to know. So it's not a matter of either your team or the BIA staff using the new Ed machine racing down to gather sensitive information that this group is trying to gather, because really what you're saying is it's below, but it's really actually not visible to the public. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. It won't be visible to the public. It does, like Public Works has made a commitment that we will check the status of these filters, I'm going to call them, and that we will collect the debris on a regular basis. So we'll open the catch basin, we'll collect the debris. We're going to bring it back to our yard to a specified area, and it's going to stay all that debris is going to stay and dry, and then Georgian Bay Forever will bring some teams occasionally, and we'll sort through and do some kind of counting and researching on what they find.
Excellent.
So it's a joint participation.
Excellent. And I will be the first to admit that prior to learning, I am pleading ignorance. I thought the Yellowfish program was part of our public art initiative. I didn't realize that it was more informative than
Yes.
simply public art. So anyways, good to know. Thank you. This is wonderful.
Great.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly those yellowfish are artful.
Mhm.
Okay, Director Slama, then you were going to update the committee and the public on the traffic calming project.
Yes, thank you, Chair Doherty. So one of Public Works commitments for 2020 was to develop a traffic calming policy. And certainly traffic calming is a priority for our community and for this council and for staff. In June, we did retain a local consultant, which was Tatham Engineering, to help us draft the traffic calming policy that would be specific, I guess, for our community, and would be based on industry and Canadian guidelines. And our consultant has been working away at it, but it was our hope that we would have the draft policy to committee at this meeting, this December meeting, before the end of 2020. So unfortunately, our consultant had some delays in completing the work, but we do now have a draft in our hands. But part of the staff component of review was making sure that we engage some key stakeholders, which is our emergency services, and in particular, the OPP and fire services. So we haven't had an opportunity to review the draft policy with those important stakeholders. And we would like to do that in consultation with CAO Skinner. Staff agree that we would like to do that before and make sure that we're satisfied with any draft policy that we bring forward to committee and council, before we bring it for your consideration. So with the timing and with holidays falling in December, I just wanted to provide this update to committee since, like, as I said, we were hoping that we would be providing the policy this meeting. Given holidays in December, I think we're too pressed to try and fit in our communication with our stakeholders before our January Development and Operations Committee. So it's likely you're going to see the draft traffic calming policy coming to DNO in December.
Or maybe January?
Well, Jan, we looked at that. We will still try to work towards that, but because our Development and Operation Committee happens early in December, we would essentially have to have everything ready before we leave for Christmas break. And I think that's a little bit too tight to run it, to make sure that we have proper internal staff review as well. So I think January will be a little tight. So right now we're looking at our February DNO committee.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think this is the only DNO meeting that we have for December. So
yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, are there any questions from the committee? I just have one. Would this document be of a highly technical nature, or would there be some policy or more sort of qualitative elements that might warrant public input, input from Trails and Active Transportation Committee, input even perhaps from the school board?
So it will be a little less technical in nature, and of course the policy will the policy that we intend to bring forward is one that as every traffic calming request would come forward, there would be opportunity for communication and comments from the public and key stakeholders. So if I'll maybe try and say that a different way. So what we had previously considered was the policy that we would implement in the town would lay out the procedure when residents wish to make a request for the town to install traffic calming measures on their street. So that will include a process that would provide an opportunity for comment from the public and emergency services and other key stakeholders.
Okay, very good. That's good to hear. I know it's highly anticipated, that's for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I think CAO Skinner would like to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, CAO Skinner, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to also comment on your question, because the way I interpreted it was, should the policy itself have public comment prior to being implemented by committee and council? And we haven't seen the recommendations, or I haven't seen, I think there's been interim work with Director Slama, but I haven't seen the recommendations from the consultant yet. And I wouldn't make it out of the question that Director Slama would recommend that there be public consultation prior to finalizing the policy, but I'd like to see the policy and you know how direct the link is between the technical work and what's recommended before we decide on the next steps. But in any case, I think it should come back in February, as Director Slama has indicated, for at least an update and to show where we are. And at that point, we could recommend whether we think there should be a public round of consultation prior to finalizing the policy, or if it in fact is, as Director Slama mentioned, and individual installations would receive that public comment, and that would be enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's good, and we will definitely look forward to seeing something further in February. Director Farr, would you care to update this committee and members of the public just as to how the most recent consultations with the public on the official plan review are proceeding?
I'd be glad to. Thank you very much for asking. On November 30th, that's Monday, November 30th, and Tuesday, December 1st, staff along with our consultants held discussion sessions on 8 of our official plan topics. We are now in the options and directions phase of our 6-phase official plan project. This is the last, there are more opportunities for consultation, but this is one of the last kind of formative public consultation stages where we're ensuring that we're getting our overall direction right. It was a very interesting 2 days. Each session lasted about an hour and a half. That covered the related topics of growth management, sustainable development, housing options, community design, green lands, the downtown and waterfront, transportation and municipal infrastructure. We had from 30 to 50 attendees at each session. Many of them, granted, were repeat attendees, but they did cover a cross section of different interests in the community, from our regular everyday folks to developers to representatives of public sector and nonprofit agencies. And there were some great discussions and a lot of varying opinions that were shared. But what was common to all of the sessions was a keen interest in the outcome and it seemed to be a real enthusiasm for the project. So it was a worthwhile for sure. One of the outputs that came from that meeting was our persistent effort to try to engage younger members of the community. There are not that many people under 25 that are participating in the official plan update. And for that matter, not a lot of young families under the age of 40 that are participating in. Oddly, that's the group that in some ways has the most at stake, because as the official plan takes hold and shapes the community, it's really after 20 years that you're going to see the come into fruition of many of those policies. So we're asking for the public's help to connect with these groups. And our consultants have agreed that if we can assemble a group of interested individuals, particularly in the under 25, maybe the school age or young people in university group, we would hold a special session with them alone. Similarly, if we are able to connect with young families, that we would do the same. We have sort of within our planning division sought out some additional assistance from our communications officer right now to see if we can connect into the schools to make things interesting. I think there are some opportunities as we come to the end of this first, what I knew to be a semester when I was in school, and look forward to the next semester. As the draft plan gets written, it would be really wonderful to get some additional thoughts from these groups during that stage, if nothing else, so that they feel involved and are able to participate in a formative way.
Thank you very much. I wonder if there might be an opportunity for us to reach out to the schools. I'm thinking in particular the high schools. They do have, at least they used to have when I was in school, urban affairs and current events and such studies at the high school level. It may just work extremely well into classroom curriculum.
I can say that we are going to give it another push, but I think that this is one of these scenarios where, as a person that's relatively new to the community, and I don't have school age kids, if any of the committee members or counselors or any of the members of the public that are listening who have a connection into the school, if you'd simply mention it and just send them my way, we would bend over backwards to try to get in and connect with people, because we just think it's that important. Great input from many other different sectors of the community and demographics, but we really feel a duty because of the long-term effects of this policy making to connect with these people. So if you have any tips and you know people personally, I would be grateful for the connection and would reach out.
That's terrific. That's great to see the effort being expended. Deputy Mayor Hull.
Thank you. Just to piggyback on that, perhaps so there isn't duplication, could the invitation be sent from somebody at the town who has direct contact with, say, the two principals at each high school? I know that the principal at CCI is highly engaged with a number of organizations, including Community Connection 211. And then the other is that I know that we've got a number of very, very highly engaged community groups through youth sports. And in particular, I am thinking of, say, the Collingwood Clippers swimming, the minor hockey, both for Collingwood Minor Hockey Association as well as the Lightning Association, simply because they are actively involved right now. And, they have extensive databases to, 400 and 500, people, and could help to facilitate perhaps even a small gathering of a workshop. But I can think of a number of people who, for one reason or another, maybe haven't gotten the message, but if they were directly contacted, I think would be quite interested in participating because, well, to be quite blunt, they're not shy of sharing their opinions at the rink, and I would encourage them to share them in a more public forum. So, and I'd be happy to help to maybe offer some facilitation to the boards in that respect.
Terrific. Director Farr?
That's a generous offer, and I expect other members may have something to say, but I will try to facilitate that by sending a memo around. It's unfortunate with the pandemic that it shut down many of the community gathering places, and because I had expected to spend more than one Saturday at the YMCA or a hockey arena handing out brochures to people with other things to do. So we lost that kind of conduit for connecting with the community. So we need all the help we can get. So thank you.
Terrific. Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just also wanted to say that I'll send some information. I know at CCI that one of the teachers there is very involved in the whole sustainability part of what's happening in our community, and has planted trees with students in the fall through the Conservation Authority. And I think there's a real leading edge of students also at CCI who are very involved in climate change, and I think would have a lot to say about how that feeds into things like, you know, that you're considering, I'll just say, through the official plan and how our community is going to develop. So I'll send some of that information through, and I assume you've been in touch. Well, anyway, I'll call you. Okay, thank you. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, any other departmental updates? Okay, seeing none then. Are there any public? Oh, Director Farr.
I just wanted to share that I was aware that there were some questions about the status of the Victoria Annex building. Is this the appropriate time to provide that update?
Sure, that would be great. I was going to bring it up under other business, but go ahead.
If this is the time, then I had sort of anticipated this question. So just as an update, I had provided a past update indicating that the Victoria Annex has come under a new ownership. It's to a company called Georgian Communities. They're most well known for the Windfall development in the town of Blue Mountains. That company has assembled a development application for redevelopment on that property that we're currently evaluating to confirm that it's complete for circulation. And I expect that you'll hear shortly that complete decision has been made, and that'll be circulated. So that'll be public soon. I spoke with one of the members of their development team about the state of the current building, and what I understand is there's some concern about the hoarding in the windows, and it appears it's been ripped out and the building's exposed to the elements. I'm advised two things. One, that there are some exterior boards that have been removed, but there are interior boards that are preventing penetration into the building. However, as a measure of added prevention, Georgian Communities is sending someone to the building tomorrow to be doubly sure that it's sealed against the elements. The proposal that they have submitted involves the rehabilitation of that structure. So, and it's fundamental, as shown in the submission documents that we reviewed to date. So it's my understanding they have a stake and an interest in ensuring that further deterioration doesn't occur. So that's the update, and you can expect to hear more about this in coming weeks.
Thank you. Hopefully it goes without saying, but I have had multiple people who are generally interested in heritage asking me about the roof because it's quite evident that there are sections of the roof where there likely is leakage. And I'm just wondering if that has been secured. It's not apparent with a visual inspection that it has been.
So on the leakage, the previous owner had installed a membrane. It's very difficult to discern. There had been wide openings in the roof that are now kind of opaque, almost looks like a mesh screen that's been installed over them. So there has been some sealing of the building. And as I understand it, this was part of the property sale between the previous owner and this owner, that these steps be taken.
Okay.
I mean, those assurances that were given, along with them visiting the building specifically to address these concerns raised by members of the public, and the expected submission that we would expect will be public shortly, are likely all combined to address some of the concerns of these folks that are passing by the building and noting its current state.
Very good. Thank you very much, Director Farr. Okay, then, item 8, public delegations. Is there anyone in the public, Deputy Clerk Dahl, who wishes to make a deputation or comment in regard to these matters, or any others?
We have one person in the attendees list. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. And his hand has not been raised, so I'm assuming he doesn't want to speak this evening.
Okay, great. Then moving on to other business. Mayor Saunderson, I understand you'd like to provide us with an update.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to update the committee. The Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, which Collingwood's been a charter member of since 2003, is striking a binational committee on shoreline resiliency, given the high water levels across the Great Lakes. And I will be chairing the Canadian side of that, and Mayor Cunningham will be chairing the US side. There are going to be approximately 7 municipalities or mayors from each side of the border, for a total of 14 working on this issue. There are very different models in the US and Canada. The US over the last 10 years has put $2 billion into shoreline resiliency and freshwater bodies. In Canada, unless there's salt water involved, the Department of Fisheries does not take much interest. So a big part of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative strategy in Canada, through its action plan, has been to work with provincial level governments, but to lobby the federal government for funding to take care of our Great Lakes and address the Great Lakes issues. And last fall, they came out with an action plan for the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence. And we will be synthesizing the two to work with the upper levels of government to get short funding for our freshwater bodies in Canada. But specifically, though, we're going to be looking at what the issues are in our municipalities, what type of programs we think would be beneficial, what kind of steps are necessary. We will be working with some academics, both sides of the border, to talk about various measures that we can use to mitigate the water level issues. And we will be starting off first with a survey for our member municipalities, and there are approximately 80 members in Canada. So we will be undertaking that work and hope to have the program recommendations finalized by May of next year. So it will be an ambitious schedule, and you'll be hearing more about it as we evolve through the work. But it's a great opportunity that covers a bunch of issues, and so certainly seeing the Georgian Bay Forever announcement and hearing what the town's plans to participate on that is encouraging, because not only is it just water levels, there's sediment issues and there's water quality issues. So beaches are a key part of our economic drivers, and if they are suffering from phosphorus issues and algae blooms, that's a huge problem. So this cuts a very broad swath through a bunch of issues, and I look forward to being involved in that.
So just to clarify, that's May 2021?
Yes.
That's very ambitious.
It is ambitious. We're hoping to have it prepared in the off chance that there is going to be an election in the spring. We want to be able to canvass all the parties to get a sense of their environmental policies and their agendas for addressing these issues, because Canada has been grossly underfunded for freshwater bodies.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing more about that. Okay, any other business? Okay, seeing none. Can I have a motion to adjourn, Councillor Jeffrey? And all in favor? And that is carried. And thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
Great evening.